Hello and thank you for joining us. I'm Cody Proctor. This is the KREM 2 News Week in Review, where each weekend we bring you headlines from the past week in the Inland Northwest. Let's get started with one of the biggest news stories of the past few days.
Court documents show Brenna Marie Doyle left 3 voicemails threatening an FBI agent working in Minnesota, along with his wife and daughter. The criminal complaint filed in Minnesota details 3 counts. Doyle is accused of threatening to murder an FBI agent with the intent to, quote, impede, intimidate, and interfere with official duties. She's also charged with threatening his wife and daughter. The FBI in Minneapolis tweeted confirming that FBI agents in Spokane arrested Doyle after she left the threatening voicemails because of the agent's employment in Minnesota. The statement says in part, quote, if you threaten to harm law enforcement officers or their families, the FBI will find you and hold you accountable. Federal prosecutors want to keep Doyle in jail, saying she's a risk for violence and obstruction of justice. Her detention hearing is set for tomorrow at 10 a.m. Reporting in the newsroom, Caitlin Galloway, KREM 2 News.
After 4 days of joining protests in Minneapolis, 11 clergy members are back home.
We witnessed and now we're telling the stories.
Dr. Jer Swigart works with clergy and other peacemakers to deal with conflict. He planned this trip as protests in Minneapolis continue to grow, joining 1,000 other clergy members working to protect those peacefully protesting.
We watched roving bands of 200, 300 people moving through the streets, singing songs.
We pray together.
Songs like this.
It grew my belief that we can actually unify as a community.
During his time in Minnesota, Swigart says he was part of 2 demonstrations, one outside the Target headquarters because the company allowed ICE to stage in their parking lot, and the other demonstration was outside the airport to protest airlines working with ICE for deportations, both of which he says were successful. Despite the nonviolent protesting, Swigart says he had a feeling throughout his time in Minnesota that there would be some sort of retaliation.
And it wouldn't be because of protesters, it would be because of ICE.
The morning Swigart left Minneapolis, Alex Preddy was shot and killed by federal agents on the street.
Our constitutional rights are being threatened at a breathtaking pace. And so I witnessed our constitutional rights to protest being compromised. We're watching people being executed in our own streets for exercising our constitutional rights.
Border Patrol Commander Greg Bavino had this to say following Saturday's shooting.
This looks like a situation where an individual wanted to do maximum damage and massacre law enforcement.
Swigart says the main mission for his trip was to see firsthand what is happening with these large-scale protests and to learn from them as well to better help our community for the future.
I think the lessons on the ground there, we're watching Minnesotans teach us what it means to be American. They're saying, no, we're actually going to prove that it has only ever been nonviolent, organized resistance that has ever changed anything. It's the only thing that has ever been effective at curbing authoritarian reach, and we're watching this happen real time.
Christian Garza, KREM 2 News.
It was quiet at Riverfront Park on Monday night as folks like Raina Grace wanted to make themselves heard.
To meet people, specifically, to meet more people, to have that bigger community, and to pay my respects.
Grace, along with several other community members, gathered at Riverfront Park to hold a vigil for Minneapolis ICU nurse Alex Preddy. Preddy was shot and killed by a federal officer on Saturday. His death shocked many in the Spokane community who wanted to come together and honor a life they say should not have been taken away. Organizer Benjamin Howard started messaging people across social media, saying he felt called to do something in Spokane, he says, is a subtle way to honor Preddy's life.
The grief and the pain that we hold in our heart of what's happening for our country, we have to engage in things that are more subtle, that play to that grief.
Folks made their way to the park earlier in the afternoon. From there, those attending left candles, flowers, and snacks at the Rotary Fountain in the park. And as attendees hold and light their candles, Grace hopes anyone attending and hearing about the vigil will stay strong in protecting Preddy's memory.
Hope in people coming together, people being really kind.
As we go to break, here's a check of your weekend forecast. Welcome back to the KREM 2 News Week in Review. It has been a busy week all across the inland Northwest, so let's catch you up on some of the news you might have missed.
In December 2024, Spokane police responded to the Northcliffe Terrace apartments for a shooting reported by a neighbor in the area. Initial information showed an upstairs resident, later identified as Joshua Musselman, was shooting rounds out of his apartment. Police Chief Kevin Hall says 4 officers fired their weapons, killing Musselman. But Musselman's family attorney Rondi Thorpe argues that response was unjust. She says his weapon was later identified as a pellet gun and says he was not armed when police arrived.
I don't know if the neighbor actually knew it was a pellet gun at that time, but they had phoned in a disturbance and that somebody was walking around with a pellet type gun.
Now, more than a year after his death, Musselman's family filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the city of Spokane and Spokane Police Department. Thorpe says Musselman was a mentally ill man who needed additional resources from Spokane Police.
There's a behavioral mental health unit that should have been called in to assist them and to talk to him. And instead they came up and shot him.
Thorpe says in the time since the shooting took place, Spokane Police have been unresponsive to her request to see the investigation findings, a frustration, she says, for her and Musselman's family.
They've refused to give us the body-worn cameras. They've refused to provide much of the evidence in this case. And it's been over a year now, and they're still refusing to provide the information.
She hopes the lawsuit will help the family process the loss and hold police accountable.
To be given the opportunity to have their case heard by a jury and to have that moment of justice in the courtroom.
We reached out to the city of Spokane for comment. They say they have not seen it yet and cannot comment until it's been reviewed. Thorpe estimates a trial date for the case to start in about a year. Connor McAvoy, KREM 2 News.
A little more than a week after an STA double-decker bus slammed into the railroad viaduct in downtown Spokane, the agency outlines its path forward. The Transit Authority detailed its investigation, saying they're examining the driver's training and knowledge of the routes. They also pointed out that driver was trained and authorized to operate the double-decker bus and also had experience on the routes. They're also looking into any potential issues with the bus's onboard navigation system, saying they will coordinate with the vendor to identify the origin and scope of any potential issue. In the meantime, the fleet of double-deckers will remain out of service. No timeline for their return. Before they do return, STA says they'll implement additional safety measures. Those include another round of training for drivers on bus height awareness and routes. The navigation software has been disabled, and drivers will instead rely on the required training of assigned routes. Drivers will start making what they call safety stops before passing under viaducts, similar to how they stop at railroad crossings. And drivers will also have to check in with dispatch when coming or going from the downtown core to confirm their route. Finally, the STA saying they are confident the buses are operationally safe, and they will continue to take a disciplined approach as they move forward.
Well, the Idaho Medal of Honor nomination is meant to shine light on 4 firefighters for their bravery, selflessness, and for some, the ultimate sacrifice during the response of the ambush attack on Canfield Mountain.
Leaders in North Idaho's firefighting community say they have nominated 4 individuals for the Idaho Medal of Honor.
Trying to get everybody at different levels of healing and managing grief and after action reviews and what is, navigating all those steps to get us to this point. A piece of that and an important piece of that is this Medal of Honor.
The nominees include Coeur d'Alene Battalion Chief John Morrison, Kootenai Battalion Chief Frank Harwood, firefighter Dave Tisdall, and Northern Lakes Captain Fritz Wiedenhoff. Fire officials say Morrison and Harwood made the ultimate sacrifice to protect their community. Both were shot and killed while responding to a fire on Canfield Mountain. Officials say Tisdall and Wiedenhoff's actions prevented other first responders from entering the active threat zone, likely preventing other lives lost. Right now, Tisdall is still recovering after also being shot.
This is us honoring their sacrifice, the family's sacrifice, which happens every day outside of events like this, but this was the ultimate sacrifice.
The work they did that day on that mountain, the sacrifice that they specifically for Chief Harwood and Chief Morrison, the sacrifice they made, and then the work that Engineer Tisdall and Chief Wiedenhoff did save lives that day.
Now, I am told the Idaho Medal of Honor is the state's highest award for law enforcement, firefighters, and EMS personnel. Local fire officials say the nomination meant so much to them that they personally delivered the paperwork to the commission in Boise this week.
Now, we are told the Idaho Medal of Honor Commission is supposed to make their decision on February 10th. For now, I'm reporting in Coeur d'Alene, Regan Gallo, KREM 2 News.
Thanks for joining KREM 2 News this weekend. I'm Cody Proctor. Right now, we're taking a look back at some of the news stories from the past week in this edition of the KREM 2 News Week in Review. We may be in the middle of the city, but right behind me is Mount Spokane. And as you can see, there's not a lot of snow up in our mountains. And that could end up being a big problem for us this summer.
We're missing about half of what we would normally have today on a typical year.
That's Washington State climatologist Guillaume Mauger. According to him, the state currently averages about 55% of their normal snowpack, and Spokane's watershed is no different.
Spokane Basin specifically is actually at a record low right now. It's at 50% of normal, which is the same as statewide. It's just that we haven't seen a year that bad in the historical record.
Think of the snowpack like it's a bank account. Mother Nature deposits the snow into the snowpack. Once winter's over, the deposits stop, and we start slowly taking the moisture from the snowpack, keeping us from drying out too soon.
So we rely on it really to get us through what are really dry summers. Even on the west side of Washington, summers are dry, and that snowmelt is particularly important in the beginning of summers.
But if not enough snow falls, the snowpack runs out faster. That's a problem for many reasons, but especially for fire season, something DNR's wildfire communications manager Ryan Roderick knows too well.
We'll be monitoring that very, very closely. We want to see how those fire fuels are going to absorb and hold on to that moisture.
Now it's still early in the season. The state climate office says Washington snowpack usually peaks around April, and DNR says a wet May and June would likely help fire crews. But we're starting from behind.
But at this point, we're far enough behind that it's getting less and less likely that we'll be able to catch up.
Now, another thing to note when I spoke to the state climatologist, he says December's atmospheric rivers dropped a lot of rain across the state, but instead of helping, that actually ended up hurting our snowpack. In Spokane, Cody Proctor, KREM 2 News.
A small fruit harvested in late summer and fall holds a big place in the Yakima Nation's tradition, but now faces an uncertain future.
We need to have that resource available in order for us to, carry our way of life, our culture. So that's how much the huckleberry is important to us, as it's the last part of our food gathering, before the winter months come.
And everyone seated at this table is here to protect that.
If anybody's going to tell the story of what this data is saying, how we're going to best protect the huckleberry, it's going to start here with this tribe.
Washington huckleberries are up against two big threats: people and pests. Summer of 2025 marked the first time the Forest Service banned commercial huckleberry harvesting in the Gifford-Pinchot National Forest, hoping to leave more berries for native tribes.
So many of our tribal members were able to gather way more, berries than they have in the past years or decades.
But simultaneously, an invasive species has been spreading through native lands the last several years, reducing the crop even more. Native leaders knew something more needed to be done.
No one's going to pay attention to these issues, except for us to sit there and say there is a problem with this invasive bug. And this is impacting a treaty resource that we depend upon, that we celebrate and is a part of our being.
So they recruited environmental students from Heritage University.
My driving force is for the people,
And tasked them with building traps to catch the insects called spotted-winged Drosophilas.
We took the positive insects and we isolated them, put them in collection tubes, and labeled them with the date and location, and they are currently stored at Wildlife.
This information is a good start, but just the beginning of a long process to stop them from spreading.
We don't know what that species is going to do, because as of right now, we're just monitoring it.
We just need to expand the area of collection. I would say this is probably 5 to 10 years of study.
They're using the off-season to make plans for a similar survey this summer and figure out how to move forward with their own standards.
We want to talk about now the potential treatment methods, what we're going to do moving forward. Obviously, with the being a cultural food, we can't have insecticides due to public concern.
Yakima tribal leaders say they don't have the answers now, but they do have a plan for protecting this sacred berry.
Being native, being an enrolled member of this tribe, you have to really take that step and want to do better for the future generations.
For Environment Northwest, I'm meteorologist Leah Pizzetti.
Welcome back. Before we wrap up this edition of the KREM 2 News Week in Review, we want to remind you that you can get the latest newscast and weather forecast anytime on KREM 2 Plus. It's free to watch and download for Roku, Amazon Fire, and on Apple TV. Now here's one more story before we go.
Cougar fans are going wild over the WSU flag being front and center at the NFC Championship at Lumen Field. Jason Fox hoped it would make TV, but didn't realize the buzz it would create across Cougar Nation.
A sea of blue and green filled Lumen Field at the NFC Championship, and waving among the 12th man flags was an unexpected appearance. Perched in the Hawk's nest, the WSU Cougar flag, caught on camera behind the field goal.
Flank you and right to pay dirt.
I was like, all right, well, let's do this.
Jason Fox was the one waving Old Crimson.
And then it was like every time, regardless of who scored, it was like, well, I'll just fly the flag.
The Seahawks fan brought it to the game, hoping it would flag the attention of his friends and family and coworkers watching on TV.
I knew the location the Cougar flag would show up on TV. I didn't know it was going to be that big of a deal.
Well, it caught the attention of Cougar fans near and far, creating a frenzy online.
Towards the end of the game, some people were like, hey, dude, that's going viral.
The Puget Sound firefighter got that seat through family with season tickets, the perfect spot to wave his Cougar pride. And Washington State pride will also be represented on the field at the Super Bowl, with WSU alumni Abraham Lucas playing for the Seahawks and Kyle Williams on the Patriots.
Seahawks are winning for sure.
And if he can swing it, Jason hopes to be there rooting for the Hawks.
Could we expect a Cougar flag in tow again?
Oh, 100%, yeah.
Jason is still riding the excitement of the Hawks championship win. His message, though, is to bet on the Hawks and maybe take those winnings to support the Cougs. Amanda Rowley, KREM 2 News.
Thank you for spending part of your weekend with us on the KREM 2 News Week in Review. Be sure to keep it here on KREM 2 for more news and weather updates. I'm Cody Proctor. Thanks for watching.